Hello, everyone. My name's Angela from Angela Simpson Functional Medicine. Thank you so much for coming to my YouTube channel. And I love working with females, possibly just like you, who are struggling with symptoms of hormone imbalance as they get into their 40s and beyond. And one of the most common symptoms that women tell me about every single day is they're noticing that they're having increased belly fat. And with that, they're having decreased energy. And they don't like it. They don't like how they feel. They don't like how they look. They want to feel better and they want to look better. And they don't understand why it's happening because they don't feel like they've changed anything with their lifestyle. Yet the weight is coming on in the midline. You're not able to do up your pants. You're having to change into more comfy, baggy clothes. You feel like you're losing your figure. And with it, you're feeling quite sluggish and fatigued, like you're having a hard time getting through your day. You're even having a hard time getting out of bed in the morning. You just don't feel like your best self. And you're wondering, how did this all of a sudden happen? And so I want to let you know some of the most common myths out there with having increased belly fat and also with that decreasing energy as you get into your 40s and beyond as a female. And very commonly, the solution is you just need to exercise more and eat less, especially the carbs. And I actually was just out with a friend the other day and she told me she saw a nutritionist and she gave her this exact strategy. And I thought, well, that's a good start, but how is that possibly going to get you the results that you want and lasting results? And so there is a myth out there that if you just, as you age, if you lower the density of your foods, especially the carbs, and you exercise a little bit more, you should be able to maintain your weight and your energy and how you look and feel. But I haven't seen this. I've worked with so many women that have already done this. They've searched on Dr. Google, they've chatted with other practitioners, worked with practitioners, they've put this strategy in place, whether it be with support or on their own, and they feel like they're no different. And if anything, a lot of women say that they're still noticing the weight coming on despite making these changes, and they just can't understand why. And so I want to let you know that even though nutrition is a strategy for helping you optimize your weight, especially around the midline, that belly fat, as well as optimizing energy, we need to have good nutrition coming in. There's no doubt. We need to get much more specific than that for females in this age group. So we need to make sure that we are doing proper lab testing to understand where you're at, because that type of more generalized diet thinking is not going to work for everyone. And for women that have tried that and it hasn't worked, you need a new strategy. And so I want to just let you know, as a functional medicine practitioner and also as a female who's in the same age group, I do understand what you're going through, but to get the answers, you need the lab testing done to see where you're at in your body. And so women can do a couple of different types of lab testing. Ideally, they're doing both to check and see how they can optimize their nutrition for optimizing their belly fat and their energy. One of those tests is called a DNA health test. And this DNA health test looks at specific genetics and enzymes and how your body breaks down and uses certain nutrients for fuel, and in particular, fuel for your metabolism. And we're not all created the same. So some people actually will do better on a low carbohydrate diet. And this is the one that is the most commonly utilized or said should be utilized for women in this age group, is a low carb diet. But some women will actually do better with a low fat diet, believe it or not. So we need to understand if someone is having genetics around needing to have a lower fat diet to optimize their metabolism, and they're going onto a ketogenic food plan with low to no carbs and high fat, they could definitely be running into trouble and probably not getting where they want to get to if they have this genetic predisposition. So we need to understand that first. And then we need to go beyond that. We need to understand what's happening with your current health status. And we need to do some real-time functional lab testing to look at your metabolic pathways in the body. How is your body currently metabolizing fats and carbohydrates, those sugars, as well as how is it metabolizing proteins? Are you bringing in the right amount of macronutrients, the fats versus the carbs versus the proteins, for what your lab testing is suggesting that you need? Some women do need to actually bring in a little bit more carbohydrate, just the right type of carbohydrates, meaning more vegetables, healthy whole grains, taking out those simple, quick to convert to sugar carbohydrates in their diet. And some people need to lower those carbohydrates completely and focus on more optimal fats coming in, and maybe a little bit higher amount. So again, we need to get specific and we need to do the proper lab testing. So that's number one. So you can't typically get to where you want to get to with that, optimizing that belly fat and that energy, by just looking online or working with a practitioner who's not doing lab testing and giving you some of those generalized strategies. Tip number two is it's very common for females as they get into their 40s and 50s and beyond to have thyroid imbalances. And very often I get on a call with women and they tell me, I've had my thyroid tested. It looks normal. The doctor told me it was normal, or the practitioner I was working with said it's fine. But in reality, you haven't had your thyroid thoroughly checked. And so this is so common that women have a TSH level check, but they don't have a complete thyroid panel. And so we don't actually have a full understanding as to if your thyroid is functioning optimally or not until we have this full panel. And very commonly, women are more hypothyroid, or they're lower in thyroid function. And if they are, this is going to actually affect your metabolism. So we have to actually help you both with nutrition and lifestyle strategies, and sometimes with some natural supplement supports, possibly even medication at times, to help that thyroid function properly. And once that starts to get back into balance, the metabolism will improve. So this is very important. And you need to be making sure that you are working with someone, such as myself, that's doing a complete thyroid panel, a complete lab test with all the blood labs that are going to give you a good understanding as to if your thyroid is potentially one of the reasons why your metabolism has slowed and your belly fat has increased. And then the other thing that I think, again, often people don't necessarily want to look at and address is that often these things will get out of balance if the stress levels are really high. So what will happen for females in this age group, often women have a lot on the go when they're in their 40s, early 50s. Many women are working, they might be taking care of children or managing, their children as they get outside into the world on their own, maybe taking care of aging parents, got lots of social activities, other activities on the go outside of your work. Maybe you're also in a relationship, you're working on that, taking care of that. There's just often so many things on our plate. And often when the stress levels get high, too high and out of balance, this will actually have a physiological effect on our body. And one of them is it will slow down our metabolism. And so you can do all of the dieting and exercising you want in the world, but if you don't address this stress and the effect and the impact that it's having on some of the systems in your body, you're never actually going to be able to rebalance your weight and get rid of that belly. Some people will call that belly fat, a cortisol belly. And so cortisol is our primary stress hormone. And if we're producing it in high amounts and our body gets out of balance with this production level, we can start to slow down our metabolism and store some of this cortisol as belly fat. So we really need to make sure that we're addressing this. And then the last thing is that, last but not least, is that the female sex hormones are lowering in our 40s and beyond. Estrogen and progesterone levels are on the decline. Progesterone a little faster than estrogen, but they both really drop off, especially estrogen with that transition into menopause. And as estrogen levels lower in particular, estrogen is something that supports our metabolism. It supports how quickly food and toxins move through the gut, and it also actually impacts our ability to absorb our nutrients. So estrogen, as it lowers, has a negative impact on our metabolism, unfortunately. So that is why many women find that they're doing the same thing that they were doing in their 30s, yet they're still gaining weight as they get into their 40s and beyond. So we need to not necessarily think, well, the solution is just to add some estrogen, take bioidentical estrogen or some other form of HRT, because this may or may not be a good solution for you. And it can pose certain risks for certain people. And you may or may not know that about yourself. So I wouldn't necessarily run out and do that as your first solution. Most commonly, what also happens as estrogen lowers is the reason that we gain weight isn't just directly because of that estrogen lowering. It's also because estrogen helps our body to move toxins out of our GI tract on a daily basis because it supports motility and metabolism in the gut. So often what we need to do is actually address the fact that there is probably a toxic load or a burden in our gut, which most of us will have, but estrogen can actually somewhat mask this over time, over our lifetime. And often we need to do some form of active detoxification to help the bacteria in our gut and even the bacteria or viruses or other toxins in our liver start to move out and detoxify. And actually this process will help our body to improve our metabolism. And often some of these toxins are even stored in the fat tissues of our cells. So as we start to get rid of some of these toxins, the fat cells shrink and our belly fat improves. So it sounds simple, but we do need to do the proper lab testing to understand how to be specific with you. So it's really essential that you work with a practitioner that understands the changes that are happening in females' health in this time of life. In your 40s and beyond, you're getting into that time period where you're in perimenopause or that transition into menopause, or you're leading up to it. I'm in that time, so I definitely understand it both personally and professionally. And you also want to work with someone that understands that it's not necessarily going to be just about hormones for you. We have to look at the body as a whole whole. We have to understand where these imbalances could have come from in the first place. They may have started many, many years ago. Most likely they did. And they're starting to present more obviously now, because as your hormone levels lower, these things can become more present and more obvious. And then we need to understand, how do we roadmap this, understand what we need to do, what the primary root cause of your symptoms are with that belly fat for you, and how do we move through it? So the lab testing is key. Is it stress that's the highest? If so, we need to check an adrenal panel. Do you have a history of having a potentially high toxic burden? Have you had heavy metals, possibly high exposure? Maybe you've had a bunch of mercury fillings or some other exposure. Maybe you worked or lived close to where there was a higher exposure in this regard. Do we need to do a toxin test? Do we need to check your liver status, your liver health? Do you have a long-standing history of antibiotic use on and off your whole life, maybe from way back when you were a child or a baby? So we need to understand all of these things, because if there's an imbalance that way, then we need to do some active detoxification and rebalancing of your gut and your gut microbiome. And that's probably going to have the strongest influence on you if that's your history. So you can start to see and understand that it sounds complex, but it's actually quite simple once we understand what's going on. We do the proper lab testing and we implement a customized plan for you to help you get rid of that belly fat, restore your energy. And then once you understand the root cause of why it's happening, you can actually maintain this long term. So that's my goal when I work with women, is to really teach them what's going on in their bodies so that you can really help yourself long term, and you're not in and out of practitioner offices, spending endless amounts of money, not knowing what's wrong, having a cupboard full of supplements, you don't know what to do with them, that kind of thing. We really want to target what's the problem, how to help you get the balance back, and then really work with you so that you have the knowledge to understand how you can maintain it long term. So I hope that this sounds like something of interest to you. If you haven't learned the root cause of where your belly fat and your energy that's getting lower and lower by the minute is coming from, you can always feel free to reach out to me. So you can go to my website, www.angelasimpsonfunctionalmedicine.ca, and there is a place there to book a free/complimentary consult. It's 45 minutes long, so it's enough time for us to understand your history and how we could potentially work together to help you get the balance back, not only with the belly fat and those low energy levels, but actually to help you get the balance back in your overall wellness, and so that you can maintain your health long term. So again, feel free to reach out to me that way. And I hope you will continue to watch some of these videos. Thank you so much for coming to my YouTube channel, and I look forward to bringing you more information soon. All right, take care.